Welcome to the Career Change Podcast, where you'll discover the frank and practical advice and resources that are already proven to work in the real world when it comes to changing careers or figuring out what business is right for you when you are a smart but likely also stuck, overwhelmed or overthinking person in your mid-30s, your 40s, your mid-50s. I'm your host, Rikke Hansen, a career change advisor, entrepreneur and former corporate HR professional with over 15 years experience of helping thousands of people just like you identify or create careers or businesses that are both meaningful and future-proof. Welcome home. Hey, it's Rikke here. Welcome to episode 49 of the Career Change Podcast. Is Stockholm Syndrome keeping you stuck in a job you hate? Now, if you've been wanting to change careers or to start your own business for quite a while, but you are still stuck in the job you no longer enjoy, and you might even have come to resent or hate, then let me ask you this. Do you ever find yourself having a good day and the job you otherwise don't enjoy? And then as a result of having that good day, you find yourself thinking, maybe this job, this career ain't so bad. Maybe I should just be grateful for the job that I do have. Or as a result of having that one-off good day, you might suddenly start questioning yourself and maybe think, should I put my career change on hold? Or at least that experience make you question or second guess or even deprioritize your career change plans. And here's the important bit. Maybe this even happens on a recurring, regular basis. And therefore, it kind of messes with your career change because these one-off good days or good periods, they kind of keep making you put your career change or own business plans on hold again and again and again. So you get into this really nasty start, stop loop. If that rings a bell, this episode is for you. Now, just to be clear, this episode is not for those of you who might just have a bad day every once in a while. Apart from that, everything is fine. We're really talking about you are in a toxic, unhealthy job scenario, but having these good experiences every once in a while keep sabotaging your career change. So we need to find a really concrete tool for you to get you out of there and to remind you why you really need that change. And that's what this episode is all about. Now, what's so interesting is that this start, stop behavior as a result of having a good day, so to say, every once in a while, it's something I hear from a lot of aspiring career changers who are genuinely deeply unhappy and deeply unsatisfied in their current job, in their current career, and who know that they want and need a career change. However, in order to cope with what is essentially a deeply unhappy and often highly toxic work scenario, they try to talk themselves into repeatedly letting themselves being put back into the maybe it's not that bad trap. They try to talk down the negative, unsustainable scenario they are in order to cope with it. Can you relate to this coping technique? Then you might have a case of what I cheekily call the job Stockholm Syndrome for stuck career changers. You might have heard of the Stockholm Syndrome. It's a coping mechanism that people develop to a captive or abusive situation. Over time, people literally develop positive feelings or emotional bonds with their captors or even abusers over time. Sure, you've seen this in, terrorist hostage scenarios. You've seen films about it, theater pieces, books about it. Now, it's not a perfect analogy and it's not a perfect concept, but it's really helpful for helping you realize what is likely going on and why you're still stuck in that job you hate. The good news is, as opposed to real captives, real terrorist hostages, you actually don't have to wait to be rescued. You absolutely have the power to be in charge and to walk away and get out of there. So, one definition of Stockholm Syndrome is it's a coping mechanism towards a captive or abusive situation. People develop positive feelings toward their captors or abusers over time in order to cope, or they might even develop a psychological bond. might that very well describe the scenario you are in right now? But here's the important bit. Remember, it is a short-term coping mechanism while the terror is going on. It is not supposed to be a long-term strategy or even a mid-term strategy. Okay, remember, it is a coping mechanism. It is not a solution. You're actually just prolonging the problem and making it worse. So back to you. See if you can relate to this. Here's an email that I got from a listener of the Career Change podcast, Lucy over in Australia. And here's what she wrote to me. Hi, Rikke. Where I keep getting stuck and self-defeating with my career change is when I'm having a good day at work among a series of bad days. I have a good day at work, maybe about 1 out of 5 days a week at the most, and definitely not every week. By a good day, I mean a fun day where I was challenged and enjoyed what I did and who I work with. It's that 20% of fun that I cling onto and keep thinking, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe I just need to change my attitude. But in reality, if over 80% of my job bothers me deeply, I know it's time to move on. Please help me get out. Okay, end of email. Now, I wrote back to Lucy and I said, it sounds like you suffer from job Stockholm Syndrome. And she was like, yes, that is it exactly. And this is what I'm doing when I'm calling this the job Stockholm Syndrome, is because it can be helpful to have names for these things so that when you catch yourself doing this coping mechanism thing next time, you can, when you notice yourself doing it, you can catch yourself, you can name it. And that really helps you choose differently. All right. So next time you get into that thing again, as in, maybe this isn't so bad, you go, hey, I'm doing the Stockholm Syndrome thing. So already there's a tool for you to help you. We'll go much more into a highly concrete tool a bit later on in this episode. For those of you who are really in truly toxic and unhealthy scenarios, I'll share a really effective and pretty hardcore tool with you that will really help you realize how dangerous the situation that you're in and that is really dangerous for you to stay there. But here's the thing, I get emails like Lucy's a lot, and I hear about these kind of Stockholm Syndrome scenarios a lot. And I want to build on Lucy's emails here because it's often literally only 20% max of work that these people enjoy who are still stuck. So let's say that you have 16 bad working days in a month. 16 bad working days that really remind you why you need to get your arse in gear with your career change. What's so crazy is it's then those 4 good days that derail all of the good thinking and all of the efforts. And most importantly, they derail that consistency that you need for your career change. Because what they do, those 4, in quotation mark, good days, they make you second guess your career change. They make you faff about. And they really ruin everything because when you have them, that means you're not being consistent, you're not being concrete, and you're not doing anything ongoing and consistent with your career change. So what this means overall for your career change effort is that you might have some kind of stab at your career change every once in a while, but you got nothing committed, you got nothing ongoing, you got no focus. And as a result, what happens is you keep having no results, nothing to show for it. And therefore, it feels like you keep having to start from scratch again and again with your career change. The good day happens, you latch onto it. Oh, it would be so much easier to stay here. I'm not so bad. I'm lucky to have a job. Handy, right? Great excuse, but it is also truly dangerous to keep letting yourself being pulled back because you truly need that career change. The reason why letting yourself being pulled back into Stockholm Syndrome is that means you're always starting over. It's literally the opposite of what's needed for a career change, right? A career transition needs commitment, focus, and ongoing consistent commitment. And what you do when you let yourself being drawn back into the Stockholm Syndrome, this coping mechanism, oh, it's not so bad, develop the psychological bond with your abuser, your captor, so to say, it ruins everything. It really derails your career change again and again and again. And you can only do that for so many times before you start doubting yourself, before you lose confidence, and before you feel truly stuck. Can you relate to that? So let me ask you this. How about you? How much of your current job do you actually genuinely enjoy? How many days out of a week, a month, or a year? Or maybe it's easier for you to do the percentage thing like Lucy did. Lucy said 20%. So if you work for 40 hours a week, that means only 8 of those are actually enjoyable. So just think about that for a moment. How much do you actually genuinely enjoy in the job that you're in right now, in that career? Percentage-wise or hour-wise or day-wise. Now, I've done a lot of research with my clients, my students, my listeners over many years. I've been in this field for over 18 years, and generally they seem to land between 17 and 20%. So I just want you to think about this if that relates to you as well. You enjoy only 17% of the time doing your working day. So just remember, what is happening right now is your life. So 9 to 5, 9 to 7, whatever it is that you're working, you are only potentially enjoying 17% of that time. This is your life. This is what you will be working through tomorrow, the day after, the day again. And it's also going to be the life that you will look back on. Just think about that. Would you even apply for a job that you knew you would only enjoy 17% of the time, right? Just remember, this is your life and it's happening right now, right? The clock is ticking 1 minute at a time. Is that really what you want? Just even from that point of view, I hope you can see that you really need to realize and take that scenario for what it is. Your Stockholm Syndrome is a coping mechanism. It is not the solution to a massive problem that you have on your hands. By going back into Stockholm Syndrome and, it's not that bad, again and again and again, you are just prolonging the problem. You are not solving it. And we really need to get clear on how you can solve this problem rather than just prolonging it. But also just think about it, even about the Stockholm Syndrome thing. Isn't it crazy to think about you allowing yourself to stay stuck in a scenario in a job that you only enjoy for 17 to 20% of your hours that you're working there, right? Really think about that. Here's the thing. Coping is not a solution. Coping should only ever be a short-term strategy, especially when you're in a very dangerous situation. It gets really dangerous when weeks turn into months, turn into years, turn into decades, and that's your career experience, right? When things don't improve by a coping mechanism, which it clearly doesn't, then you need more. You should not put up with an unsustainable situation, especially if you are over 35. I remember once I was in one of my favorite bookshops in London. It's called Foyles. If you ever come to London, make sure you go to Foyles bookshop. And I remember they had this table and there was a little sign saying coping mechanisms or coping strategies. And I remember literally feeling sick, thinking, you know what? This is, it's great for short term, but people don't need coping mechanisms if it's something that's ongoing. They need solutions and they need strategies. And the good news is that while job Stockholm Syndrome can be helpful to explain the scenario you're in, you actually can leave of your own accord, I hope. You can actually leave your captors, your abusers, your employer behind. You don't need the police or the FBI to intervene, even though I bet you it sometimes feels like that's what you need. So remember, also, Stockholm Syndrome, it's a highly debated concept. So take it with a grain of salt. Don't cancel me, right? Just, take it for what it's worth, for how it's helpful. That's how it's meant here, okay? But let's move in to talk about a really powerful tool I want to gift you with. And I want to teach you this because it can really help you get clear on the real cost you are already paying and will continue to pay when you are stuck, when you choose to stay stuck in a job that's not so bad. And then you can decide if it's actually worth you staying or if you really need to get going with that career change consistently. It is a tool that I call my cost of staying list. And it's one of those tools that I lost track of the number of my clients who told me that this tool changed everything for them. Now, I'm really rolling out the big guns here. This is the kind of tool that I use with my clients when they really need to get going with their career change. They really need to get honest with themselves about what a dangerous situation they're allowing themselves to be in. It's when they really need the motivation to finally get going with that career change, with that business. So for some of you listening, it might be too early in the process for you to use this, even though you can use it for motivational purpose. For others, of those of you who are clear about what you want to do next, this is going to be the thing that will finally make you realize that you need to get a move on. However, this tool is very different from Should I Quit My Job? You definitely want to listen to the episode 23, Should I Quit My Job, in connection with this. This is not about quitting your job tomorrow. It's not about that. It's about building the case for getting your career change off the ground, building the case for why you really need to leave that job behind if you want to actually stand a chance of changing. And it's not about quitting with nothing else lined up. I never recommend that. If you want to know what I recommend in terms of Should I Quit My Job, how does it actually work, make sure that you listen to episode 23 of the Career Change podcast, Should I Quit My Job? This one is about developing a tool that will give you the reasons why you really need to get your butt in gear, why it's so dangerous to stay stuck in a Stockholm Syndrome job, okay? So this tool is very powerful. It's very direct. No fluff here. So just listen in and use what's helpful for you, okay? So this tool, like I mentioned, it's called my cost of staying list. And this is really where we go from vague to concrete. So I want you to really do this exercise, develop your own cost of staying list after this. Really write it down. Do the exercise. Be brutally honest. Just start with a piece of paper. And then once you've done that, then don't lose that paper, but rather transfer it into a format you can always carry it with you. So a lot of my clients, they have this in a Trello or Notion board or whatever it is. I will give you a couple of categories you can start with, then feel free to add your own. But this is a work in progress. It's not just some faff exercise that you do and then you lose the paper or it's stuffed in a drawer somewhere. I want this to be top of mind for you. This is an incredibly important exercise for making you realize why it's dangerous for you to continue to stay and talk yourself into staying. Okay, so often my clients carry their cost of staying list with them. And this is also a really great exercise if you're an overthinker or someone who feels overwhelmed, because it really helps you get out of your head and get things down on paper. So promise me you'll do this exercise. So remember, this cost of staying list, we're going to identify the costs you are already paying, the price you're already paying by staying stuck for so long in that job you hate. And remember, it's compounding. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And these costs, they're not imaginary. They're real. They're concrete. They are already impacting you, have impacted you probably for quite a while on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And they're not just impacting you when you're at work. They're also impacting your life outside of work. And they're likely also impacting your family, your friends, the life you want to have outside of work. Now, I suggest starting with two categories. Number one is, the price you're paying professionally, the professional cost you're paying, your work life. And then the second one we'll go into is your personal life. And that's because these two are often the areas where most people often underestimate the risk of staying and where you're already paying the cost on a daily basis. And that will just exponentially increase the longer you stay captured, so to say. And this is really important because so many people, when they think about a career change, they focus mainly on the risk of making the change, whilst totally ignoring and even downplaying the cost, the risks of staying, things that they're already paying that are not imaginary, whereas most of the risk that you think about when it comes to changing careers, they're totally imagined, okay? I also want you just to feel free to add other categories to your cost of staying list, as long as those categories, they're real and you can spot them, okay? This is about getting real and identify what's already going on. Now, the purpose of this list is really to build the case for why you ought to be leaving this dangerous, toxic job. Okay. Now that's very different from deciding how much or what kind of career change you need and what you want instead, right? That's not what this is about. This is about stopping the tendency to keep putting your career change on hold and to finally get going with your career change, right? So timing wise, this is for those of you who already know what you want, what career change you want, what business you want. For some of you might be there later, but it's really, really important for those of you who are right now in a job that is so toxic to do this, because if you stay in that toxic job, your career change might never happen because you'll be so exhausted, keep talking yourself out. So literally your job is what's stopping you from getting going that career change. So it's really important to build the case for leaving. And this is not about building the case to quit that job and nothing else lined up. For those of you who are really in toxic scenarios, you will potentially want to look at getting a what I call cash cow job, where you use your current existing skill set to leave the job that's so toxic behind to take another one just for cash flow while you're building your business, making a career change on the side, or whatever it is. Like I said before, make sure you're listening to episode 23 at the same time as this one as well. Now, back to the cost of staying list. It's important that you both, you look at the historical data. What has it been like? And also what's going on right now. And then you want to keep adding to it. You want to keep score. You want to review this on a regular basis and add on to it. So it's a work in progress document. So let's start with your professional life. Your work life, from an HR, human resources perspective, so to say, from a hiring perspective and current career perspective. And I want to start here, as this is one of the most underrated risks and cost of staying stuck in a job and a career you don't enjoy. Not just for you personally, but also for how people view you in case shizzle hits the fan and you are made redundant, for example, or in case that you go and apply for something else. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think back over the last 18 months or so, a year to 18 months, 2 years, when you potentially have been really unhappy, really unsatisfied in that job. How many achievements have you actually had that you're really proud of in that career, in that job? How many career highlights have you actually had? How many projects have you put yourself forward to? How is that going for you that you can really talk about, that you're proud of? Or is what actually happened over the last 12 to 18 months is that you slowly become de-skilled in the sense that you are not actually doing any courses. You are not volunteering for new, you're not putting your hand up for new assignments or getting become part of exciting projects. You're not doing anything outside of work to improve, to upskill, to improve your professional skills, or to improve the knowledge of your area, because you don't really care about it anymore. So what that means, if that's you, if you're finding it really hard to identify key career achievements, massive things you've done in the last 12 to 18 months, you haven't done anything to, upskill, to improve your skills, then what the price you are likely paying right now, it's irrelevance within your current career field, it's losing the competitive edge, it's de-skilling, it's losing potentially or not improving your reputation, it's potentially losing your visibility, right? Again, like I often say in podcasts like this, you're not just risking your current career capital, you are also you're not just risking your current career, you're also not even doing anything to build a new one. And that's an incredible precarious scenario. And that's the cost you're currently staying. You're potentially risking both the your current career that you work so hard for, but you're also potentially risking not making that career change or not starting that business. That is a very high price to pay. And what do you have to show for it? A job potentially where you're only happy 17% of the time. Now, my dear listener, I'm not doing this to tell you off, okay? I am on your side. But I'm doing this because I spent the last 18 years helping people just like you getting out of really unhelpful, toxic scenario. And we need to have hard conversations like this. This is about getting real about what's going on in your life, in your career right now, and making you realize and decide, is it really worth the price you're paying? Is your job right now really worth paying this high price for if you're not really enjoying it? Or are you actually better off finally committing to that career change and taking yourself and your life seriously? Okay? So I'm doing this and I'm throwing all of these things at you to really help you. So now is your time to get really clear about this. Have you just kind of given up on networking, on LinkedIn, being visible in your field, and thereby also potentially risking your reputation or losing out on really important promotional opportunities, for example? Okay? You're not just risking not making any moves on your career change, but you're also risking your existing career. I want to repeat this. This is such an underestimated and common issue, right? And then you get made redundant, for example, and then you have to really think hard about selling yourself because you find it really hard to give examples of recent things you might have done that you're really proud of, right? So even if you weren't wanting to change careers or never get your ass in gear, you are risking your existing moneymaker. Bear that in mind. Please take care of yourself, my friends. So write this down. How does it feel to pay this cost on a day-to-day basis? What is it you personally, what is the price you're paying? Is it de-skilling? Is it losing your competitive edge? Is it irrelevance? All of the stuff you're paying for your current career, right? And also just look back on that. What is the other price you're paying? What are the things that you don't enjoy doing on a daily basis? Write all of the things down that you don't enjoy doing. That is the cost you're paying. And remember, these ones are not imagined costs. They are real. You've been paying them for years. And the longer you stay stuck, the more they will just exponentially increase. As uncomfortable as this exercise is, here is why I encourage you to do it as a mid-career professional. So many mid-career professionals are held back from making a career change because they focus almost 100% on the risk of making a career change in midlife. So all of their worries are around making the change. Meanwhile, they totally ignore that they are in a capture scenario, right? You are the Stockholm Syndrome here. You are totally underestimating the risks of not changing careers, of not starting that business, right? And you are totally underestimating the risks of staying stuck because you're trying to cope. So what I want you to start doing is to spend a lot more time thinking about the risks of staying, right? Because then you realize that actually the risk of staying is so much bigger and so much more dangerous than the risk of making that change. Okay. So just, get all the things out of your head. What is the price you're paying, in your professional life, in your work life? What does it cost of staying stuck? What are all of those things you're risking that you're paying that you do not enjoy? Let's move to category number 2, your personal life, right? Because the thing is, you're not just paying a price in terms of your professional life, your work life. You are also paying a price. You're paying the cost. There's a cost for staying stuck in your personal life. And this is, I think, even more important because this is your life, right? Here's the real insidious, horrific, toxic side effect or hostage cost of staying stuck in a career, in a job you don't enjoy, is that you are not just paying the cost whilst you are at work, one long minute, hour, day, year at a time. You also continue paying that cost, that fee, whilst you are not working. As in, you continue paying it even when you're not at work. So outside of work. And it's not just impacting you, it's likely also impacting the people you love. And I know that can be really hard to talk about, but I really want to talk about it because I've had this conversation with so many of my clients and they were kind of relieved to actually have it because it's so hard to talk about. Because I know some of you might be listening right now and maybe you even feel like you're not good enough, you don't even deserve a better career, or you don't feel like you're the kind of type who can even do that. And in that case, it can often help to bring other people into this equation, whether that's your children, your family, your wife, your husband, your partner, whatever it might be, and realize that this is not just about you, it's so much bigger than you. So what we want to do is we want to talk about the different, I'll give you a couple of categories here that I know are really massive for my clients, but feel free to add your own one in terms of how is being stuck in that job you hate negatively impacting your life outside of work, okay? So often in my clients, it's health, mental health, physical health, it's their relationships, it's the quality of life or not outside of work. The whole thing about you keep canceling on your plans, your friends, maybe even marriage trouble, issues with kids. You have no leisure, you just have recovery, right? So all of those kind of things. So one of the things I see a lot is health issues, physical health. How does your current job impact your health? Does it impact it for the worse or for the better? What is the cost? How is it impacting your fitness? The way you eat? Are you actually able to take care of yourself? Do you actually have the energy to go to, work out, take care of your fitness, to eat properly, to eat healthily? If you're over 35, if you're over 40, the effects of aging, they probably started taking, effect. If you are dealing with a lot of, accumulated long-term work stress, then how is your sleep? How is your recovery? And I'll leave the illnesses out of here for a moment. I won't go into details. But I know from a lot of clients, there are a lot of health issues that can potentially partly be caused by staying stuck in a job you hate for so long. I'll leave you to think about what that means for yourself. I remember back when I used to work at JOB, back when I worked in human resources for American investment banks, I was in my 20s, and already in my 20s, I had started, almost working my way to a stomach ulcer. You know what I mean? That was only in my 20s. I can only imagine what my health would have been like if I'd stayed stuck for many more years. So just think about what is the cost you're paying in terms of your physical health and write it down. The stress, the physical health issues, the lack of fitness, whatever it is, how is that job you hate impacting your personal life, in this case, your physical health? Then there's also the mental health side. Work-related stress is a massive issue. You speak to any counselor, any psychologist, and they will tell you that work-related stress can often, work-related stress that's been prolonged can lead to things like anxiety and depression, loads of other things. This is not always work-related, but for a lot of people, it can be. There are a lot of unhappy professionals out there who, work is just making it worse. And even though there's a lot of less stigma about seeking help, I still see a lot of what I call over-functioning perfectionist, over-functioning anxiety out there. Often people who try to, who don't actually get help for these, who don't seek help, they often try to just overperform or overcope. So I want you to really think about this. What is the mental health cost you are actually paying or have paid or will pay the longer you stay in that toxic job? Write it down. And it goes without saying, if you need help for mental health issues, please seek help. And if you don't like the first counselor or therapist or psychologist you see, try other ones. It is so, so important. Take this seriously. This is a massive issue for a lot of people who are unhappy in their job, okay? Remember, most of all, you have options. You do not have to continue to stay stuck in a job that you hate. Listen to the rest of these episodes for the Career Change podcast and seek professional advice. But write it down. I know a lot of you probably have a lot of toxic side effects from staying stuck for so long in a job you hate, but write it down. What is the cost you are paying? All right. Then go into the relationship side, because here's the thing. If you keep staying stuck in a job you hate, this is not just going to be about you. You are not the only one paying the cost. It will likely impact your family, your relationships, your marriage, your friends, your kids, all of that. I have had a number of clients where literally I would have asked, I used to have this test that I would sort of, when really I could see people were staying stuck and they just couldn't get them still unstuck, and where they knew it was negatively impacting people around them. And I used to do this test called Would You Take Your Child to Work test, where literally I've seen people who were managing directors, senior directors, all levels, where they would not want their kids to come to work and see them because they would turn into an anxious mess. They would be aggressive or anxious or unhappy or hiding away. They would just not be themselves at work. They would never want their kids to see that. Just run that one past yourself. That's often how you realize the way you come to behave at work is probably not something you'd want your children to see. That's when you know you've got something really toxic going on. But also not just that. If you get into the stage where you keep having to cancel on your friends, on your family because of work stress or work commitments, in a job you do not care about at the end of the day, you want to write all that down. How many times have you cancelled your plans? How many times have you cancelled on your friends? What is the impact of your marriage, of all of this unhappiness from this job? Write it down, okay? Then there's also this whole thing about just life, full stop, outside of work. How much of work life can you actually enjoy versus just recovering from work and overthinking about work or resenting work? How much of your, in quotation marks, free time is negatively impacted by the work you don't enjoy, right? And do you even have free time? Maybe you're so exhausted that you just cancel everything and can't even make plans, feel like you can't even think ahead. I see a lot of people just spending a lot of their time outside work recovering. They're exhausted, they're resentful, right? And maybe you even then overcompensate by over shopping or going on escape trips or, go down the self-development guru hole, but not actually facing your problems, not actually looking for real solution. Maybe it's even alcohol, maybe it's food, whatever it is, but write it down. It is so important to identify the real costs you're already paying and will continue to pay if you stay stuck. So promise me you'll do this exercise. Get it out all of your head, my friend, down on paper, write it down. Because if you don't, you will just keep focusing on the risks of making a change as opposed to the risks of staying. Okay? This is so, so, so important. So write your cost of staying list. Take some time doing this. It's really, really important that you do it and then carry it with you at all times and keep working on it. But this should really make you realize that no job is worth killing yourself over, especially if you don't even enjoy it. I really mean this, I truly believe that career-wise, the biggest risk that anybody can run is to never have the opportunity to do work they truly love, work that's meaningful, work that matters to you, where you can just be yourself, okay? I don't believe that anybody should have to go to a job they only enjoy 20% at a time maximum, right? 20% of the time. So if you go through these exercises and you realize, I really hope you'll go through these exercises and realize that you're risking a heck of a lot by staying stuck. If that's you, then please don't waste the rest of your career, the rest of your life away. No job is worth killing yourself over. No job is worth risking your relationship, your health, or your potential for. Life is just too short. Now, feel free to add any other categories in terms of the costs that you're already paying. Write it down, get really honest. And then once you've done that, then review all of that, right? And then you're able to make some really smart decision as to whether the real risk is staying stuck or whether the real risk is making a change. And then take that piece of paper and turn it into a Trello board or a Notion board or whatever thing on your app, on your phone, so you can always keep it with you and then carry it around with you, right? And review it on a regular basis. And know this, the cost of staying is not just something you're paying today. If you've been stuck in that job for years, then you've already been paying it for years. You're paying it now, and you will continue paying it exponentially into the future if you stay stuck. Because how is this going to improve, right? This is going to compound. You are already paying the price, my friend. If you are like Lucy, who wrote that email to me, you have 80% of your working week that you don't enjoy. And you are paying that with life energy, right? And that's just even before we talk about what's happening outside of work. Is your scenario right now in that Stockholm Syndrome job, is it likely to improve, or is it just longer? Is it just likely to get worse the longer you stay? Think about it. the longer you stay, you are missing out on 80% of you. Just think about 80% of your work time. You are not even there. Where are you even? Imagine how much of you, the amazing you, your capacity, your potential. Imagine how much you're missing out on experiencing every single day. Imagine what kind of work you could create. Imagine what kind of work you could experience instead. I think about this so much when I come across people like you where they don't enjoy their work and they still keep holding on to that 20% and talking themselves into staying. I wonder whether there's a word or an expression for the you might never get to experience if you stay stuck. Be curious about that possible self. You latch onto that and make that really motivate you to get into gear with creating a career or job or business you will truly enjoy, right? Most people tend to overestimate the risks of making a big change and totally underestimate the risk and cost of staying stuck. So it's really the risk of staying stuck that I want you to think about here, because you're likely massively underestimating it, right? And you're already paying the cost. So write your list and keep it handy. Because here's the most phenomenal great news. As opposed to hostages, you actually have a choice. You can change your scenario. You can actually move on. So is coping in a job you hate really worth the return on investment of the time you spend there? My friend, it's time to start your own rescue mission. All right? So next time you have one of those days where you start thinking, maybe this job ain't so bad. Pull out this list. My cost, the cost of staying list, the price you're paying for staying stuck. Pull out that list to remind yourself how dangerous a scenario you're actually in. Okay? You deserve so much better, my friend. Everything is out there waiting for you. But it's up to you to get yourself out of that unhealthy scenario. So do also listen to episode 23. And I send you the biggest possible hug. But do this exercise. And then I will see you, as always, over at thecareerchangepodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening.